Welcome back to the Imagine Amazing podcast, your healthcare finance podcast in the state of Oregon, brought to you by the Oregon chapter of HFMA and sponsored today by our diamond sponsor, Infinix Healthcare. We're glad you're here, whether you're on your morning commute, out for a walk, or maybe sitting at your favorite camp spot with a cup of coffee. I'm Kelly, and I'm here with my co-host, Jeff.
Hi, everyone. In our second episode, we kick off the year with our new chapter president, Evan Martin, and his theme, Explore and Grow, #Camp Oregon. Today, we're setting out on a different kind of trail, the money trail. Our focus this month is one of the hottest topics in healthcare finance, and that is navigating reimbursement changes.
The reimbursement landscape in healthcare is constantly shifting. Regulatory updates, payer negotiations, value-based care models. It can feel like the map changes just as you start to get your bearings.
Exactly. That's why it's so important for HFMA members to stay informed, share best practices, and help each other navigate the twists and turns.
You're joined today by Oregon HFMA's current president, Evan Martin, and his special guest that's going to lead us through this important discussion. Evan, will you please introduce your guest?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I am so glad that we got to invite Liana Hamilton, our past Oregon president, a general manager at Asperion Health, to join us today. Liana has been helping healthcare organizations adapt reimbursement changes for years, and we're thrilled to have her join us today. And she is one of my biggest professional mentors and cheerleaders as well. So even more excited to have her.
Oh, Evan, that's great. And Liana, so great to see you. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you all.
Liana, I'll kick us off. How about, would you please share with our listeners a little bit more about your background and how you've come to understand healthcare reimbursement so well?
Sure. So it's been a long journey. I've spent my entire career in healthcare revenue cycle. So I got my first job out of college working with Triage Consulting Group and spent 14 years there. The last 4 or 5 years as a principal there before founding my own company, Boost Healthcare, also focused on zero balance and revenue cycle, which became part of the Asperion family beginning of this year. So just to give everyone a little bit more background on what is zero balance. So really, we're in the way back of the revenue cycle process. So really evaluating all the claims that have come in the door and to verify if the reimbursement was correct, and really diving into the root causes of the incorrect reimbursements when we find them, as well as working through the payer challenges and working with the payers to get those additional recoveries in the door.
It's incredible, Liana. Thank you for joining us, by the way. We're super excited to have you and your expertise. And thanks for explaining all of that. As you mentioned challenges, what do you believe is the biggest reimbursement challenge facing providers today?
Sure. Well, from my perspective and the back end of the revenue cycle, I would say overwhelming. It's just denials, left and right. So we're just seeing all kinds of reductions in reimbursement through various denial and delay tactics from the payers. So some examples that we're seeing over and over again is just request for more information. So this could be on the provider side where they're asking for chart notes, or it can be on the patient side where they're asking for all kinds of third-party liability and additional information from the patient before they'll reimburse the claim. And then we're seeing that when they do receive the additional information, especially the chart note information, then it can then move to a different type of denial, like medical necessity, which requires a very long review and appeal process to resubmit to justify the medical necessity for providing that care. We're also seeing a real ramp up of retrospective DRG downgrades. And we're even seeing that they're lacking proper notification and communication as to what that downgrade involves. Why are they downgrading this? And it seems that they're using some sort of I think it's called an analyzer tool, et cetera. So they're really using technology to ramp up these DRG downgrades. We're also seeing updates of payer manuals to deny certain revenue code charges. For example, revenue code 274, which maybe, wasn't necessarily programmed into the systems or taken into account at the point of negotiations. Also on the reimbursement side, we're seeing a lot of, prospective difficult payer negotiations. So managed care teams are having a really hard time working with the payers to achieve the appropriate agreed upon reimbursement rates, even looking prospectively. And then on top of that all, we're seeing the implications of the No Surprise Act on the reimbursement side. So, there's a smaller population of patients that arrive at your emergency or urgent department. They're not contracted, but you can't bill the patient, but you only have 30 days to respond to any sort of denial or very low partial payment, or you time out from that additional reimbursement as well.
Liana, I don't think you could have summarized that any better. I completely agree. I think that's a large list of issues that are challenging healthcare providers this day and age. I completely agree. I think another area that we're seeing some additional work is on the regulatory side. So what would you recommend for organizations in terms of how to prepare for regulatory changes before they hit?
Yeah, I think from the regulatory standpoint, it's really having a dedicated resource to monitor those changes. What's coming down the pipeline, is that lie in your managed care department, or is that legal? It's really probably up to the organization, but having a dedicated resource there, I think, is really important. And I'm not sure that really lies necessarily in the revenue cycle team in current state. I'd say as far as, just trying to ensure, keep up with all of this, similar to the regulatory, it comes down to the key word being resources. Resources. So I think most providers at this point have a dedicated denials team to really combat all of these. But, I mentioned my background's in the zero balance space. And that's where, way back in the day, we would find a lot of contractual underpayments causing under reimbursement. Today, overwhelming, we're seeing that in the zero balance space, it's primarily unworked or underworked denials because there's just too many for internal teams to keep up with. So that at some point they have to move on with their resources and best use them to get the most cash they can. As far as, recommendations, on those third-party liability, we're seeing a lot of that come through the zero balance space because they have their typical resources that are used to working, Monday through Friday, kind of in that standard business hours. So we recommend having a more specialized team to deal with those third-party liability patient calls. We found kind of that secret sauce being after hours, weekends, really being trained on how to communicate with patients, that they're not trying to get money from them. They're just need that extra form or for them to call their insurance company. And that's kind of a special skill set. We recommend a kind of a dedicated resource there. And then also on the resource front, any sort of technology. So, there's a lot of talk now, and something that we're utilizing a lot is automated appeal generation. Med necessity, DRG downgrades, they require a lot of clinical time and resources to go through those chart notes. So any sort of automation that you can add there that can help generate those appeals that are so time consuming. And then managed care involvement with contract adherence, payer manual changes. I mentioned that is that payer manual that the payer is using to discount claims. Is that appropriate? Is that contractual? Having managed care take a look at that and really keeping that communication line open. So escalating these trends to managed care, legal, et cetera, really keeping everyone in that loop.
I would add for the regulatory component, Kelly, for us to be prepared and ready to go. One of the areas is, and I actually learned this from Liana and her team back at Boost when I was at Legacy Health, was really around taking that regulatory change and having your contracting team run it through the modeling. They're leveraging their modeling solutions already for leveraging Medicare to bounce it against the commercial payer. You can run it Medicare to Medicare, Medicaid to Medicaid. So that's a great opportunity for them to help tell you where you're going to have financial impact, so that from a revenue cycle VP perspective and leadership perspective, we're able to have the counterpart conversations with our CFOs and their leadership team on letting them know we are going to expect X percentage loss based off this regulation. And this is why we need our advocates to go out and do more of that for us at Capitol Hill and partner with that our governmental teams that are going out there and doing that lobbying for us. So I do think that's one of those areas that we as revenue cycle leaders just think it's a black box to us, and we think somebody's doing it, but nobody actually really self-initiates that without us jumping in, helping articulate our need for that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it goes without saying, too, that the relationship that revenue cycle needs to have with your government relations staff is really important, too. And to start those conversations early and often so you can have a full understanding of what's coming and how to open up those discussions with the folks that have that ability.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to announce, this seems like great timing, that the Oregon HFMA chapter is hosting a webinar from the Oregon Hospital Association next month on October 23rd. So if you want more information from that department, keep your eyes out for that free webinar for members.
That is so awesome. You guys, this information is so valuable. Thank you for going into depth about the regulatory. It is so hard at times to keep your eye on everything that's trending. So kudos to the Oregon chapter for inviting the regulatory people to a webinar where we can all join and actually ask them the questions, make sure we're aware of what's happening. And also thank you for those tips to helping work through some of those issues on the reimbursement side, and Evan on the regulatory issues as well. So very valuable. We hear in healthcare all the time, or we often see in healthcare, organizations, the providers, trying to pull back everything and do it internal. And then we see them invite some business partners to the table because it's hard to manage everything internally. I was speaking to someone the other day and they said, hey, I don't think we're ever at a space in healthcare where we're going to be able to do it all on our own moving forward with all of these changes that are happening. What's your opinion on that, Liana? Is it something that, and Evan as well, you being from the provider side, Liana from those who are supporting the providers, where do you see healthcare trending now and in the future as far as using business partners or not in this area?
Yeah, I agree. It takes a team, right? So I think there's a build versus buy versus partner, decisions and evaluations that you need to make. So, getting that team together, right? Do you have everyone in the right positions? And maybe, you don't at the time, so you bring in a business partner until you learn enough to, or identify the person that can fill that position. So I think it's just a big team effort. There's really no kind of going it alone or just kind of relying on, rich reimbursement from the payers.
From the provider side, I think we definitely need to step back even on our side and embark more of that relationship. I think the one thing that I learned quickly in moving into Zoom Care, being over rev cycle plus managed care contracting, is that harmonious component. So that's really where I think having more touch bases than what we probably are naturally doing, and not with the people who are just negotiating the contract. It actually needs to be at that analyst level and hear what they're analyzing and what they're articulating, so that you can also plug in, okay, well, we're having this issue with this, or we're having this issue with that. I think that is really to embark better reimbursement. That's what we're going to have to get down to, is teaching our managed care counterparts more about actual revenue cycle operations and what's feasible for us to be able to do versus what we're just being told to figure out how to execute.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. And thanks, Liana. Great discussion today. We always love when our listeners can take away some key items that we think that they should implement right away. And with everything that we've talked about, Liana, if we were to ask you to try to narrow it down to 3 things you think that our listeners could do this month to improve their reimbursement readiness, what would that look like to you?
Yeah, I think, we talked about having the right team in place. So that's really, do you have the resources in place? Do you have the right tools? And do you have the communication loop? I'd say those are the 3 things. And that's where do you find a partner for certain parts of that? Really, really pulling that together to ensure that you have the right team and the right communication, because that's what's going to take in today's, healthcare space.
Awesome feedback. Agreed. So what would you say to someone, Liana, who's really struggling, they're feeling overwhelmed? What's the best first step to get back on track?
Sure. I always say, don't get hung up on the onesie twosies. It's really apply that 80-20 rule. So look at the 20% of the issues or problems that are causing 80% of the dollars, and focus on that 20%, right? Because usually you can narrow it down to a few things, and that's really going to drive the biggest change. And then you can kind of keep dipping down and looking at the other things, but really don't let those onesie twosies get in the way of the big picture.
Genius. Agreed.
Liana, it's been so nice to have you today. Thank you so much for sharing your guidance with us. We really appreciate it. And I want to switch a little to Evan now as our president of the chapter, and thank him also for being here and inviting you as an amazing guest. And Evan, give you a chance to take a few minutes to talk with our listeners about important updates happening with the chapter.
Yeah, so we as a chapter have embarked in the full camp theme, and we have some, as Liana said, we have a camp webinar coming up for around reimbursement, and I am super excited about their winter webinar that they're already in the works of planning. But this one with OHA is going to be amazing as well. And I think even if you are not a hospital association member, you should still attend it, because they're going to give us insights on ambulatory services as well, which impact all of our medical practice groups. So while it might feel like it's more targeted towards the hospital team, it's really targeted towards all of us, understanding all the regulations and how it's going to impact us. And then we also have coming up on, I think it's October 16th, I should know this, but we have our Women's and Allies event. Liana is actually going to be in a panel group there as well. And we're really focusing in on the diversity component of it. We're talking about women entrepreneurship and leadership. We have the Hawaii Attorney General joining us and talking about her career from being a physical therapist all the way now being to the state attorney general, and where is that going. And then one of our favorite speakers in Oregon, Libby Wagner, will be closing us out as our keynote, and starting off with Marty Moore as our opening keynote, a former chief nursing officer at Providence St. Vincent's Medical Center and Medline Industries, and she has multiple patents out there there as well, and just wrote a best author book around leadership. So super excited about those. And then always want to do a plug. Now is your time to register for Western Region. We have provider sponsor scholarships out there. We have 50% discounts for providers right now coming up, about to expire. So you should get out there and do that, and make sure you sign up for Executive Connections. Kelly and that team have done an amazing job getting it prepped and ready to pair providers with business partners based off what they want and need. And this year's theme is going to be amazing. So make sure that you wear something tie-dye or lights for some neon, for some black lights, so that you can see those northern lights.
That is fantastic, Evan. You shared so much information about what's up and coming and available, and there's still time for all our listeners to register. And if you want to catch those dates again to make sure you didn't miss anything, please visit the Oregon HFMA events calendar so you can register, sign up, and join us. Thank you, Evan.
And as always, you can connect with peers on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So please make sure you visit those sites, like us, and follow for more information. Sharing experience is one of the best ways that we can all explore and grow together.
And a huge thank you to our guest, Liana, today. So glad to have you join us. And also thanks to our diamond sponsor, Infinix Healthcare, for supporting this podcast and the Oregon HFMA community. Founded in 2012, Infinix provides scalable, AI-driven solutions that optimize the financial life cycle of healthcare providers, covering all aspects of patient access and revenue cycle management. Serving a rapidly growing client base of over 172,000 healthcare professionals across 4,000 facilities, including ambulatory, acute care, and post-acute care providers. Infinix helps healthcare organizations capture more revenue, adapt to evolving regulations and payer guidelines, and stay focused on delivering exceptional patient care. For more information, please visit www.infinx.com.
Thanks, Kelly. And next month, you'll want to check us out again. We'll be talking about professional growth, sharpening your skills, with stories and resources to help you invest in your own career development and learn and grow. So stay tuned and remember to follow us on all popular podcast platforms, as well as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X, formerly known as Twitter. You can also learn more about Oregon chapter, including what is trending and all the fun conferences and opportunities by Googling Oregon HFMA.
And for our listeners, until then, keep exploring, keep growing, and we'll see you on the next trail at Camp Oregon.